we want to I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about this poem you have about shaking hands and that encounter of the enemy or the other, and maybe read it out to us. So tell us a bit about the poem and what's behind it.
Sure. So in the last decade, there's been some monumental public gestures of exchange between Britain and Ireland. And one of the things that the peace agreement for Northern Ireland requires is that it's really a tripartite relationship between three governments: government in Belfast, government in Dublin, and a government in Westminster. And those relationships, all of those together with each other, are really important. And the Dublin-Westminster relationship has been really strengthened by a visit of Queen Elizabeth to the Republic, which was the first ever, and then a response visit of Michael D. Higgins to Britain, which was the first ever of a formal state visit. And they were amazing and marked with extraordinary gestures of goodwill. And a few months, 2012 I think it was, a few months after the visit to the Republic, Queen Elizabeth was coming to Belfast, and Martin McGuinness, who was the Deputy First Minister at the time, had indicated that he would be willing to meet her and shake hands with her at a public event. And she also seemed to have indicated that she too was willing. And they each saw each other as representative or directly responsible for violence and for grief that they personally as well as societally. So they each felt like they were meeting the other and that they had people from their own, whoever their own are, who would support that public gesture or decry it. And so they each did something which was personally as well as politically really significant. There's all kinds of reasons to go against that. But so when they met, it was on a Wednesday morning, and I got invited along. It was supposed to be happening. It was this kind of made-up artistic event. Cooperation Ireland did an amazing job. They were saying, we need an event at which this can happen, so it's not just hello, shake hands and leave. So there was this event for artists on a Wednesday morning. I have never seen a crowd of artists all at 9 a.m. gathered together in our finery. So I was there as poet, and really there was, we were all there standing around, and I had been thinking all morning about hands and shaking hands and what does it mean. So after I saw it, and we saw these handshaking that happened, I wrote a poem called Shaking Hands, and I was on the BBC World Service that night, and I think I tweeted it out or something. Anyway, they phoned and said, could I recite it? And after that, Martin McGuinness, and then subsequently Prince Charles heard the poem. Martin McGuinness loved the poem. Prince Charles said, it's a cracking poem. So apparently that's a good thing to say. I hope it is anyway. And then eventually Martin McGuinness asked if I'd handwrite a section of it out to be given to Peter Robinson, who was the First Minister here at the time, as his farewell gift. And there's irony in all of that. Martin McGuinness and Peter Robinson hadn't ever shaken hands in public while they were in office. But I think the gesture of that should not be read cynically. I think the gesture should be read to say that they worked together in as much as they were able. And for me, this poem is a call to leadership, as well as a call to the ordinary ways in which all kinds of peoples have hands that are shaking, or they are shaking hands all across the north of Ireland. So I'll read some. It's a long poem, so I'll only read a bit.
Okay.
Shaking hands. Because what's the alternative? Because of courage. Because it's a small thing, shaking hands. It happens every day. Because I heard of one man whose hands haven't stopped shaking since a market day in Omagh. Because it takes a second to say hate, but it takes longer, much longer, to be a great leader. Because shared space without human touching doesn't amount to much. Because it is tough, and this is the stuff of memory, the stuff of hope, the stuff of gesture and meaning and leading. Because lives have been lost. Because lives have been taken. Because to be bereaved is to be troubled by grief. Because more than 2 troubled peoples live here. Because shaking a hand is only a part of the start. Because privilege is not to be taken lightly. Because this just might be good. Because some people love what you stand for. And for some, if you can, they can. Because solidarity means a common hand. Because a hand is only a hand. So hang on to it. so join your much discussed hands. We need this for one small second. So touch, so lead.